Hey guys, what is going on? What is going on? I'm back here with another live stream here on IG. That is the only platform that I'm streaming to at this moment. That's IG. And yeah, I'm back here with another broadcast here on IG. We're talking about 6 things men must do. What's going on? Amazing artwork. Thanks for joining, man. Hey, talking about 6 things men must do to show up as leaders. So we'll go over all 6 things. And plus a bonus, I'm actually in the Houston, Texas area, so we'll be talking about a men's conference that is going to be taking place by yours truly, myself, and other speakers as well. And so we'll be talking about a host of different things. So we'll touch bases on that in just a few moments. So again, thanks for joining. We're talking about 6 things men must do to show up as leaders. This topic here is actually very important to me, and I think it should be important to most men. And I think the challenge with most men, for reason why is they're not showing up as leaders, or at least just in a space where they're just maintaining. And at some point, just maintaining is difficult. It's difficult to hold that position where you're just maintaining, because naturally human beings, be it man or woman, human beings as a whole, we are all created to be progressive individuals or human beings, meaning that we're moving forward, whether it be the wrong information, the right information. We are wired to move forward. We're wired to create. We're wired to build. We're wired to perform. And excuse me, those things are absolutely important. And so with that being said, these 6 things that I'll be sharing with you, they're absolutely going to take us to the place of leadership, especially for men. And I think a lot of times as men, we shirk that responsibility, if you will, because it is a burden. It is a burden. It's a lot of pressure being a man as it is already. And this is just really where I don't even think that we're even touching the hem of it, even close to it, because there's so many responsibilities that we do have as men. And so that being said, again, it can be a challenge. It can be a challenge walking into that space, because especially one of my first points is having a model. If we don't have a model, men, if we don't have a model, it can be absolutely difficult to walk into that space, or at least understanding to understand what you and I need to do as men to know what that model looks like. And so again, number 1, having a model is supremely important, guys. Oftentimes we find ourselves as men of all walks of life, if you will, trying to mimic our fathers to the best of our ability. And again, good, bad, or indifferent, these are the models that we have. And sometimes the fathers are absent, and other times the father is there and absent as well. And again, a host of other things could be going on with that. But nevertheless, we can find ourselves mimicking those things, not even in a space where it's intentional. And it's like, oh, we can say, oh, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to be, a woman can say, I don't want to be like my mother, whatever the case might be. But if that is the only model that you have, gentlemen, you are surely likely to walk in those shoes, whether you want to or not. And you'll spend a lot of energy trying to not walk in those shoes, and actually trying to prevent yourself to becoming like your father. There's a lot of spent energy in that space, because that's what you know, and that's just the way it is. That's what we know. So again, having a model is absolutely important, guys. And again, without that model, we're going to model something. We're going to model something, again, good, bad, or indifferent. If dad was there, or if he wasn't there, or if he was there and he yet wasn't there, wasn't a voice within your household, and mom was the more dominant person, again, regardless of the situation, men, we will more than likely mimic what we have seen dad do. And with that being said, part of that model Again, we are going to be picking up. We're going to be picking up more of the emotional traits that come from mom, especially if mom is more the person or an individual where she's a dominant personality. And we can easily pick up those traits as a man. So again, not having the right model, but yet also mimicking, not having the right model, but yet mimicking our fathers and picking up that emotional trait, being that men are more logical, again, wired to be more logical, as with women, they're more wired to be emotional. So it can be very difficult for us as men, especially if we have not, if dad has not really been a voice in the household, and we don't know how to think, and we don't know how to model the information, or at least his presence. We will model his presence, again, good, bad, or indifferent. But if we don't have any more insight with that information, or at least from the model that is there, again, good, bad, or indifferent, if we don't have any information related to that model and how to be the man or be that leader that we are desiring to be, we are, again, set to model what we see our father, how he has modeled his role as a father, as a dad, as leadership in the household, if you will. And also we'll pick up those traits. We'll pick up those traits, in most cases as men, we can easily pick up those traits from our mothers, being that oftentimes when the mother essentially takes the lead role. When the mom takes essentially the lead role in the household, men can easily pick up that emotional thing that comes with women, and we end up having men who are modeling men who are not necessarily available, but yet, I'm just going to toss it out there, but the men aren't available in a sense of taking their rightful places within their household, but yet they come off almost as really kind of the things that we would customarily see with women, more kind of whiny, more kind of emotional. And I mean, let's face it, let's face it, guys, no woman wants to hear that. No woman wants to hear that. And that's why it's important to, again, have the right model. I'm actually going to put the link in here to the information I'm going to be talking about in just a minute here. So again, models are absolutely important, guys. And whether you've had the right model or the wrong model, you will model something, guys. You will model something. And without a model who is going to take you in that forward progression, again, progression is typically forward, but you will go in some direction, whether it's forward or backwards. In most cases, you won't know that you've gone backwards until years later, because you're going to be responding differently from your peers. So you may not know that you have received information that is really not beneficial to you, and again, appearing that you are either stagnant or walking backwards, or going backwards in our growth, our personal and emotional and mental growth. That's why models are important, guys. So again, model, you will need a model, guys. Again, good, bad, or indifferent. If dad was there, great. If dad wasn't there, that's not so great. But in most cases, as men, especially, and I don't know the stats on it, but I know, especially as a black man, there are a lot of men who have been raised by their mothers, and perhaps in other groups of people as well, that may be the case. But I know for black men, a lot of us have been raised by single moms. And again, even if dad was there, his presence, hey Tish, what's going on? Thank you for joining. And Lenore, thank you as well for joining. So again, without the presence of our fathers as men for the sons to model, guys, good, bad, or indifferent, we will model what we know and what we see. And it could either move us in a forward position, a right position, and we would have yet to find it out. Because if the information that we're modeling or we're presenting to our significant others or a relationship on, it doesn't necessarily have to be your wife or significant other. It could be colleagues. These are, again, things that we will pick up from our fathers, good, bad, or indifferent. We will later at some point find out if that information has been beneficial, whereas that it is fostering relationships. So it's important to know that model. Again, number one, having a model. And once you found the right model, guys, check this out. You want to study that model. You want to study that model. It makes no sense to have a model and you can't study the model. And I think that one of the challenges that we have, not only as men, but people as a whole, the challenge is that if you are following a model, again, with our fathers, good, bad, or indifferent, if you are following that model as your parent, your father, and we as the sons see that our fathers are not available, guess what? It's like someone constantly moving the line, and it can be hard to follow. It can be hard to study in the way that we need to study. Again, ascertaining the information that's going to help us as men be better leaders. So again, having a model. 2, and as I mentioned, study. You must study. You must study that model. And if your model isn't perfect, you might have to find yet another model, and yet another model, and yet another model. The reality of it is, as human beings, guys, men and women alike, we are all imperfect. None of us are perfect. And if you've ever been in a relationship, be it man or woman, where you have had a disagreement with your significant other, your girlfriend, your wife, and you have come upon a certain agreement about XYZ, or what, it could be anything, but yet you are now having another discussion about that same thing, and it can absolutely feel like the person has moved the line. It can absolutely feel like the person has moved the line. And such is life sometimes when we are choosing certain models, and again, looking at our fathers or looking at other people, maybe celebrities or something of that sort. When these individuals are perhaps maybe gotten in trouble, from the law or something, some unlawful act or something like that. Or maybe their relationship, maybe we are looking up to this individual and their relationship is not what we thought, or we hear something negative about this particular model. Now we have to actually shift. Because if that's not in the direction that you want to go, again, we oftentimes will put these individuals on a pedestal. And so if that's not the direction that you want to go, as far as the individual that you want to model and become this leader that you see yourself, you can absolutely find yourself shifting yet again and again, because people, men and women alike, we are shifty. We are unstable sometimes, and we are constantly moving the line, if you will, so to speak, so that it fits our narrative. And that's not the kind of leader that I want. That's not the leadership that I don't believe that's the leader that you want. So in order to become the best version of ourselves, again, and I think the best version of ourselves is, for men, being able to walk into that space of leadership, being able to receive a promotion, not because I think you're a great person, not because mom thinks you're a great person, your wife thinks you're a great person, but from a biblical standpoint, guys. Leadership is divine. Leadership is spiritual, guys. And sure, I'll get someone to challenge this, absolutely. But we have to understand that this is what most of us are dealing with, because we're not in our rightful places, and life will send all kinds of distractions. Life will send people who are going to tell you that you're not qualified to lead. They will send, they will send armies of folks that will tell you that you're not qualified to lead, for the simple fact that they don't want you to lead them. And when men take their rightful places, it's not because they're promoted because of what I think or how I think, or how I may think about them, or what my reasoning behind it may be, or what your reasoning behind it might be. It doesn't matter. Hey, what's going on, MVP Denise? What's going on? Thank you for joining. We're talking about 6 things men must do to show up as leaders. Appreciate you for joining. I mentioned the first point being the model. Men must have a model to look up to, someone that they can really essentially lay burdens on, if you will, someone that they can aspire to be. And as men and women alike, we are absolutely all imperfect. We are imperfect human beings. And because we are imperfect human beings, we can find ourselves just constantly, forever looking for that place to call home, forever looking for that place to say that, hey, I'm here. I feel safe here, because as human beings, again, we're absolutely imperfect. We will move the line on you because we are imperfect. We will move the line on you because it fits our narrative. It fits our narrative. So again, I mentioned model, must have a model to look up to aspire to be. 2, you must study. You must study. The Bible says, study to show thyself approved, that the workman rightly divides the word of truth. So with our studying, we're going to get all kinds of concepts and understandings. And so we must be able to apply that knowledge correctly. Apply that knowledge correctly. Again, having the wisdom that comes with studying, or being a disciple, being mentored by someone perhaps, or if you have a coach or something, listening to what your coach has to share with you and practicing that. And that actually, in fact, brings me to segues into point number 3. We got to practice this stuff, guys. We got to practice this stuff. And again, putting the knowledge into practice. Putting the information into practice and what you have learned from this individual that you're saying that this is who I want to be. This is the kind of leader that I want to be. So we must put into practice. We must study. And then again, thirdly, we must put that information into practice. So again, with the studying, we're going to acquire all kinds of different knowledge and understanding. But to practice it, we also know that in the practicing, this kind of leads me to my kind of segues to my next pointer, number 4, is that to practice something, that means that you're not going to get it right the first time. That means that you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to fly off the handle on some things. Your emotions are going to be out of whack. You're going to have anxiety, and all these different things are just going to be a ball of emotions and just confused, perplexed. It happens, and that's why it's called practice. That's why Jesus had disciples, because they were being discipled, but at the same time receiving discipline. And that's what the practice is about. The practice is about discipline. That's a huge piece. Perhaps I should have made number 3, discipline. But with practice comes discipline, or it should come with practice. Discipline should absolutely come with practice. And I think a lot of times, again, because people are not perfect, and we do have a tendency to move the line to fit our narrative. That is just the nature of man. And when that line is moved, it can absolutely throw us through a tailspin. I when I was younger, I followed many pastors and other leaders, and to hear of certain news that they were not, in many ways, I placed them on a pedestal, and And to hear that they had fallen, or, something had happened, again, just human frailties. We all have them. And we all deal with them differently. But for me, when I was younger, to hear these pastors or other leaders that I aspired to be or looked up to see them fall, man, it just did something to me. I found myself just like, man, again, just feeling just as unstable as perhaps they were feeling. Again, I don't know exactly what was going through her head, but feeling like I had lost my footing, if you will. And I needed to be rescued from something, because, when we put so much faith in people, sometimes we can absolutely feel crushed when they fall short of our expectations. So practice, 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 guys. And I would even say, even with the discipline part of it, as I mentioned earlier, that comes along with practice, or at least the discipline should come with practice. It's not the discipline first, but the practice, and then the discipline, and then back to the practicing, and yet more discipline. So I believe it should go in that order: practice, and then the discipline piece of it. And so as we are just people, we, again, are aspiring to be looking up to other people, perhaps. And again, for men, being the leaders that we are desiring to be, looking at other men, other celebrities, presidents, whatever the case might be, these people or men who are CEOs of large organizations, we can absolutely aspire to be these men. But we also have to know that no man gets to take the place of God. And for me personally, this is who I, as a leader, aspire to look to his son and how his son led. And that son, his son, is Jesus. So for me as a man, I'm deciding to go with something that's less risky, rather than looking into other people. And this is what I've learned. I am aspiring to be the best leader that I can be, not only in my household, but in anything that I do. In anything that I do is to take the lead when that opportunity comes. Doesn't mean everything that I'm touching that I'm going to be the leader of everything. No, it doesn't mean that. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that as the time and opportunity arises, that's what I will do, is to take the lead, guys. And I think that's what most men are aspiring to do, is to take the lead. But the challenge is that we have bad models. And I don't even know if the word having a bad model is the right word to say, because the Bible says we have all fallen short of his glory. We have all fallen short. The Bible also says that Satan had deceived the entire world, meaning that was me too. That was me too as well. And the deception ran rampant throughout the earth. And that means you too. Moms, daughters, sons, fathers, uncles, nephews, nieces, cousins, doesn't matter. The entire world had been deceived. And so it becomes very important to find the right model. Again, as I mentioned, say it one more time, as people, we will move the line on you to fit our narrative often. And it takes yet discipline sometimes to sit in the pain that we're dealing with, guys. It takes discipline. It takes discipline to know that, hey, I'm going to get through this thing. This is all part of the practice. Learning what to do and what not to do. Guys, I want to ask that you share this out. This is a great conversation. I'm absolutely enjoying this. Share this out. Have this conversation with someone. We're still talking about Six things men must do to show up as leaders. So share this information out. And as I finish typing this in here, I'm going to share with you the conference, a men's conference that I put together that's going to be taking place in the Houston, Texas area. So give me just a moment here. I want to type this in and go ahead and pin this within the broadcast area here. So give me just a moment here. Men's conference. All right, cool. Cool. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So that being said, guys, we've been talking about 6 things men must do to show up as leaders. And that is our best version, guys. That is the best version of ourselves, is to show up in our rightful places as leaders. And I would go as far as saying that take a look at the book in the Holy Bible and look in the book of Genesis. And when we can look at this information as being facts, guys, we'll show up. We'll show up in a way that we need to show up, and do away with all the suffering that some of the suffering, not all of it completely, but some of the challenges and the suffering that we are as men having challenges with, or squabbling with, or going back and forth, or feeling unstable about this, or whatever, feeling that we're walking on unstable ground. Read the book of Genesis from the very beginning on who God says you are as leaders, man. That's where I started. Not from the very beginning. But that being said, guys, we got a wonderful, powerful conference that's taking place within the month of October. That is this year, again, 2023, for 2 days, gentlemen, for 2 days. It is going to be the 20th of October and the 21st of October. That is a Friday and Saturday. It is a hybrid conference. That means that you will be able to watch the conference from the confines of your own home or office virtually, and you can be in person if you are so inclined to be in person. So we'd definitely love to have you either watch virtually or be in person. Awesome. We'd love to have you join us. You can follow the link there that's pinned here in the broadcast. That's bit.ly/the men's conference. Again, that will take you to our website. And once you check out the website, read the content on the website. I do absolutely, guys, I have connected with you. So take a gander at that information, and make sure that you click on the link and go ahead and reserve your seat right now, because the pricing of the tickets will go up at some point, guys. We are still in the preliminary phases of this of the men's conference that's taking place again. That's going to be October the 21st and October the 20th and the 21st this year. That's 2023, October 20th and the 21st, 2023. That's a Friday and Saturday. Doors open 7 p.m. on Friday here in the Houston, Texas area. Once more, it is a hybrid conference, meaning there's going to be a virtual aspect of it and a in-person part of the conference as well. So love to see you there. Follow the link there again. That's bit.ly/the men's conference. We'll have absolutely more speakers, so I won't be the only speaker there. We'll talk about spirituality. We'll talk about health, relationships, careers, and much, much more, guys. We're going to absolutely touch bases on trauma. We're going to touch bases on anger, some of the challenges that we as men are dealing with still to this day. Some of the hurt that we received from our fathers, or again, lack thereof, or fathers being there, or being fathers not, or being absent, or fathers who were there and not there. So we're going to discuss all these different things, guys, because I think as before I continue on here with our fourth point here, one of the challenges is that the biggest challenges that we are dealing with as men, especially with men, and women too, the importance of a father. The importance of a father. And finding the right model. As I've stated to you just several times over and over, excuse me, People are imperfect, guys. And that's what I would discover on my journey. I had a journey to take as well. People are imperfect. And because people are imperfect, what happens? We have a tendency to get disappointed. We have a tendency to lose hope because that individual that we may have looked up to, and they may not have been all the more wise about it. They may not have been aware of this situation, or at least how we viewed them. But as I stated earlier, we will model something, good, bad, or indifferent. And so when we look up to these individuals, our parents, our pastors, whoever they may be, our uncles, our brothers, our big brothers, when we look up to these individuals and we find that, wow, man, they're just as human as I am. They're making mistakes too. And then we can find ourselves drawing back and trying to fix this thing ourselves, fix our own lives ourselves, because we put so much hope or had placed this individual, as I did at a time in my life. We placed these individuals on a pedestal, and when they had fallen short of our expectations, how we perceived them, we would then get disappointed. And for some people, that disappointment had led them to maybe alcohol abuse or substance abuse or overeating, or, again, trying to create multiple relationships. Abuse on, different levels. So when we're disappointed, oftentimes, again, a lot of times that disappointment comes with people. A lot of times that disappointment, again, those unmet expectations, that come with people letting us down. Or at least we may have placed an individual on a pedestal, and that person may not even be aware of it. And so we can find ourselves as men suffering in silence, placing hope in a person who's just as infallible as I am, as you are. We can find ourselves giving people so much credit, and the only one to which that credit is due, I believe, is to God, and the one who came and died for us. And I know some of you perhaps may not believe this, but the reality of it is that, or at least I believe the reality of it is that, again, you will model something in this life, gentlemen. And all too often, we're trying to represent the same information. We're got the same information that we perhaps received last month, last year, or from some type of guru or celebrity, and this is how they do things, and blah, 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 blah. And the list goes on and on. So what happens is that this information, either from the celebrities or the gurus that are out there, it comes packaged yet a different way. And yet to another person, it's packaged yet a different way, and yet another way. Who can keep up with all of that stuff? Until that moment, that celebrity, we may see them in a different light. And then next thing you know, we as people, as infallible as we all are, not infallible, I shouldn't say, that's not the right word, but because we are humans and we will fall, we will make mistakes, we will just fall and sometimes in a miserable way. Yeah, just destroy things because our lack of understanding, our lack of knowledge. So again, as we are searching out for these models and trying to become the best version of ourselves, and then again, as I stated, become that leader as men, that is our best version. And until we're walking in that best version of ourselves, guys, we're getting something that looks like something. Again, we're getting something or someone who keeps moving the mark because it does not fit their narrative. Or they're moving the mark because they're going to be seen as they're going to not be seen as the person who they may have portrayed themselves to be, or the picture, the image that they have believed themselves to be. But nevertheless, so it's absolutely important, guys, again, choosing the right model. Just doing a recap here. Choosing the right model. Making sure you study. And with that studying comes an opportunity for us to practice what you've been studying and work out the kinks, if you will. The Bible talks about how gold is being purified. And so with that studying and with that practicing, it's like a purification process, if you will, being purified and making sure all the impurities are being taken out or things of that nature, and whatever that process might be with purifying gold. But I would imagine that heat is being added to it, so it becomes absolutely very, very hot. It becomes very, very challenging as we are again studying and putting into practice what we're studying. That is the purification process. That's when the heat is turned up. And when the heat is turned up, it also comes with discipline. It also comes with knowing what not to do or learning what not to do. Because maybe previously this is what we had known to do, but in our plight to become the leaders that we see ourselves, or the best version of ourselves, again, becoming that leader, that is the best version of ourselves. So as we are moving forward, again, progressing to become that the best version of ourselves, that leader, it's important to know that there's a process that we got to go through. It starts with finding the right model, studying, practicing, the discipline that comes with it, being purified, having the heat turned up on what you learned, and the pressure that comes with the being a student, if you will. The pressure, man, that comes with it. Number 4, forgiving yourself and others. Forgive yourselves. When we make mistakes, when we fall short as we are working our way to become the best version of ourselves, again, starting with the right model. If you don't have the right model, guys, if you don't have the right model, I have to say that again and again. If you don't have the right model, you're studying the wrong information. Your practice is going to be off. And as far as the discipline, you're going to be not disciplined correctly. So there's so much to gain with having the right model versus having a model that makes mistakes just like you and I. That individual who we've placed on a pedestal, that when they fall, we can find ourselves being crushed, being broken, because now what do I do? So again, it's important to find the right model so that you can study, have the right study habits, practice correctly, and become disciplined, knowing what the right thing to do and knowing what you should not do. And knowing that This discipline, the practice, the studying, and having the right model, that is called the purification process. You're being purified, and in that stage, the heat is going to be turned up. Because now you're trying to live up to what you're aspiring to be. And the lifestyle, or the where you and I may have come from, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't line up with where we're going. And so it's going to be a crushing moment, or moments, if you will, in order to get to that place, guys. Some things have to be destroyed. Some things have to be obliterated, if you will. And some new seed has to be planted. And we have to be consistent with that, because our mind will want to dig that seed up. That our minds will want to say otherwise. No, I can't do this. It's just too hard. No. I want you to stay the course. Take a stand. Take a stand on what you're aspiring to become. And that is the best version of yourself. And that is a leader. Not because I can promote you. No. But from your biblical perspective, from a spiritual perspective, men, you are leaders. And no one gets to take it away from you, except we give it away to them. And you may say, well, Curtis, how can I give something away to them? By not knowing, by not having the knowledge. And the interesting thing about this conversation that I'm having with you is that when you've been given something, a truth now, you can deny it if you want to, but it does not mean that it's not truth. And the longer you and I, or an individual, stands in denial about who they are, the longer it takes for you and I to get to that rightful place. So forgiveness is absolutely essential to walking this thing out, to arriving at your destination as a leader. Forgiveness. The Bible says there is no condemnation in Christ Jesus for those who are walking in Christ Jesus. And I'm saying that because for me, I've chosen a model of Christ. It's a lot more, or it's less risky, if you will. He's someone who doesn't move the line on me. And he's not going to move the line on you. So he's not like these other human beings, such as myself, you, and many other millions of billions of people on this earth, who will move the line for their own selfish gain. But the model that I've chosen is Jesus. Because it's less risky. There comes with some challenges with it, absolutely. Because I have to drop this persona of who I may think that I am. Because in most cases, who I think that I am, it's come from my mom, or at least how my mom has perceived me. She's given me that perception of how, the fact that my father wasn't there. I didn't grow up with my biological father. These things all play into a perception. Again, good, bad, or indifferent. They play into a concept. And not having the right model will absolutely put me in a position to walk that thing out. As different or as it may be. That definitely wasn't my goal, but that was the life that where I was at one time, not having a biological father. And it doesn't mean that if my biological father was there, that things would have been different. My point is that these things, whether they're present or not, they create a perception. And when the perception has been created, there becomes a image or imagery of how we see things. And how we see things plays into the model that we end up creating ourselves. This is good stuff, guys. Absolutely good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Guys, thank you for joining me. Absolutely, thank you for joining me. I'm certainly going to continue. Just want to take a pause here and mention the men's conference, the 2-day men's conference that I got going on. That's in the month of October. That's October 20th and the 21st. That's going to be a Friday and Saturday of this year. That's 2023. Again, October 20th and 21st, Friday and Saturday. Doors open at 7 p.m. It is going to be a hybrid event or conference, and that means that you will have an opportunity to watch the conference from the confines of your own home, your office, wherever, with other friends. You can watch the conference again there virtually, or you can be in person if you are so inclined to. So again, a hybrid men's conference that's going to take place in the month of October 20th and the 21st of this year, 2023. So in a matter of a few months. Would love to see you there. The conference is titled, I don't even think I mentioned that. The conference is titled Rewriting Success and Revolutionizing Well-Being, the ultimate 2-day men's conference. We're going to talk about that, guys. This success thing is very, very interesting. So I'm just going to give you this little bit here. Success is absolutely, guys, it's absolutely a system. It's a system, guys. So I'm gonna be speaking more about that at the conference, guys. I want you to understand that success is a system, and if for us to think that it is different or it's not a system, life is full of systems, guys. And yeah, I'll dive more into that. I'm not gonna spill the beans right now, but certainly gonna dive more into that. Again, I would love to see you there at the conference. There is the link that is pinned here in the broadcast. That is going to be bit.ly, bit.ly/the men's conference. Check us out there. Go to the website. There you can read some of the information. I think I share some personal stories as well, and I do believe these stories will connect with you on different levels, guys. So we're all at different places in our walk as men, and eventually becoming the leaders that we need to become, not should, but that we need to become. Because if we can't become the leaders, guys, guess what happens? We leave the walls, the defense mechanism. We are the defense mechanism, guys, for our families and our wives, our significant others, for our children. And without us men walking, or at least taking our rightful places as leaders, guys, again, according to what the Bible says, guys, this has to be your fact. Because if it's not your fact, guess what happens? As I mentioned earlier, people, other systems, other concepts and ideas of who you are as a leader or who you're not as a leader, or and things of that nature, it just gets all muddled, guys. And here we are, moving the line once again. Why not deal with something that is 1,000% less risky? Guys, come on now. This just makes sense. If someone gets to move the line and tell you who you are and who you're not, that's not the person that I want to model. That's not the person that I want to model. So number 4, I mentioned forgiveness. The Bible mentions that there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And I'm going to share this with you as you are looking to this model that you are aspiring to become like this model. know that if you are walking with Christ, and as you are aspiring to become more like him in mannerism, in your actions and love, and again dropping our own egos, and being able to look in the mirror and say, hey, that's mine. That stuff is mine. And I don't like what I see, but that's mine. The Bible says there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. So as long as you are walking toward that mark, there is no condemnation, guys. Because God already knows that if you're continuing to seek after him, to search after him, again, to become this model, to model him, if you will, as long as you are seeking after him to model him, there is no condemnation. You can only get better because he knows your heart. He knows your heart. This is about a heart thing, guys. That's what the whole forgiveness is about. Or the lack thereof being unforgiveness, meaning that the heart has become hardened. And if we are walking in Christ, or at least aspiring to model after him, yeah, absolutely, the heart comes with all kinds of different things. We're being discipled now. We're practicing, we're studying, we're looking forward, because that's in the direction we're walking. And so there are going to be lots of all kinds of things that are going to fall off. Things that we once adored, or just we things that we loved at some point. I really love this car. I really love this, and I really like that. And as we're walking this thing out, we can absolutely find out, man, there's some things that I can't take in this role, this place where I'm going. And forgiveness gives that an opportunity to just drop the extra weight, drop the extra bags that we may be carrying on our way to becoming the leader, the best version of ourselves, and that is the leader that we are aspiring to become. And let's face it, guys, some of us as men may not want to become leaders, or don't see ourselves as leaders. Then what happens? You'll end up being led by someone else. Leadership is not just about leading out there. It's about leading your own space. That means head of your household as a man. Being in charge and making sure things are up to speed and up to par within your own household. It means being able to encourage your wife. It also means to find encouragement as well. It may mean as men that we might need to be able to reach out to other men so that we can be encouraged. It's not easy, but can absolutely be done. So forgiveness is a huge piece. Not only forgiving of ourselves, but forgiveness of others for the offenses that they've done to us. So that we can walk into this space without the weight. As God had said to Adam and Eve, or to Adam after they had eaten of the tree that which they were commanded not to eat of. He said, Adam, where are you? Where art thou? And Adam says, I'm here. Adam says he hid himself. He became afraid, essentially. So that's not the place where God wants us. He wants us to walk comfortably into what he's already given to us, to what he's already spoken about us as leaders. He wants us to walk this thing out. because what he says about you and I is fact. It's fact, guys. And to accept anything less is to partake of the fruit or the mayhem, the chaos that has already been running rampant here in the earth. So again, it's important to understand that forgiveness is absolutely essential to walking or becoming the leader that you and I are aspiring to become. That is the best version of ourselves. And obviously forgiveness of others as well. Number 5, now that we've dealt with or at least handled the forgiveness, we're overcoming. We've overcome the challenges that we were once hampered with, if you will, that once stood in our way. Again, the bigger piece of really kind of what I'm discussing here is the lack of forgiveness. You know, you can have the model, you can, as I've mentioned here, of the first 3 points here, you can have the model, you can have the studying, the practice, and / the discipling, or being the discipline, if you will. But if you don't have the forgiveness piece of it down, where you've forgiven yourself and you've forgiven others, you've taken your eyes off the model, because the model is not going to be burdened down with unforgiveness. We've lost sight of some things. So that means that it's absolutely crucial, highly important, to allow yourself to go through the purification process as we are walking this thing out. And as I've been discussing, 6 things men must do to show up as leaders. As we're accomplishing each of these items here, there's absolutely going to be a purification process. And part of that purification process means that we are forgiving of ourselves and forgiving others who may have offended us. And I mentioned after the number 4 is number 5, overcoming. So once we have taken that step there, again, the forgiveness of ourselves first and foremost, and the forgiveness of others. And I think a lot of times people have this flip-flop, or perverted, if you will. And the word pervert just means to switch something around. And so I think, you know, a lot of people have this, again, as the old saying is, putting the horse before the cart. They've got it switched around. And so they will say something like, oh, I forgive you, forgiving the other person. But forgiveness has to first start with ourselves, ridding ourselves of the shame or the embarrassment that came with that moment or something like that. Whatever had been taking place. Ridding ourselves of those thoughts, if you will, and at least being able to manage those thoughts that may say, oh, you idiot, you this, you should have known better. And the fact is that a lot of times the offenses that have been towards us, a lot of times have come from people that we trusted. And we blindly walked into it, not knowing. So forgive yourself of that. And then forgive others who have offended us. The Bible talks about removing the plank out of our own eye first. And then can we tend to the other situation and helping the other person remove the speck out of their own eye. Meaning that the plank is a larger issue that we may be dealing with. And yet the speck in our brother's eye is yet of a smaller matter. But what happens naturally for many of us is that we want to try to tend to the person who's got the speck in their eye, and yet we're dealing with something of a much larger matter and wanting to as they say, and oftentimes in the airline industry, we want to put the mask on, help others put their mask on, and we haven't put the mask on our own selves. So again, it becomes important to first forgive ourselves and then forgive others. And then, as I mentioned, number 5, overcome. Overcome. And when we overcome something, we overcome that thing because we've been purified. We've gone through the process. We've gone through the challenges. We've gone through the night sweats. We've gone through the anxiety and all those other things that may come with it. We've kicked the habit, whatever that habit may be, an addiction. I'm trying to say that word right. But we've kicked the habit, be it drugs, some kind of substance abuse. We've kicked the habit. We've overcome. And now when we've overcome, there's a confidence that comes with it. There's a knowing, there's a knowledge, there's an empowerment that comes with it. That someone can't take it, someone who hasn't gone through it, they can't take it away from you. So to overcome is to not only arrive at a destination, but is to come with a testimony. Come bearing the scars that came with it. Come bearing your newfound knowledge. Come bearing a different image of yourself now. An entirely new perspective of how you see yourself. Overcome. And then lastly, once we've overcome that thing, we're absolutely in a position where we can reproduce it. We can duplicate that, meaning that we can now share this information to an extent that we are helping other men become leaders because we've gone through this process. So now we're reproducing, knowing that reproducing this in a space or in a sense of from a spiritual and a biblical standpoint, we're now able to reproduce this as fathers. There's a difference between father and son, guys. And what I've walked you through here, the 6 steps, that's what we've been talking about. 6 things men must do to show up as leaders. We're walking through the sonship first. We're walking through the model. We're finding the right model first. We're studying that model, reading about him. How did this model work under pressure? This individual that I'm inspiring to be, how do they deal with the pressure and the vicissitudes of life? How do they deal with them? We're studying this individual. We're practicing. And with practice, as I mentioned earlier, practice comes with discipline. We're still talking about 6 things men must do to show up as leaders. You've got to go through a sonship first. 4, forgiveness first of yourself, or the shame that comes with not knowing. First and foremost, forgiveness of yourself, then forgiveness of others. Then, once you have built up the courage and the strength, you forgive yourself first. You take a drink first to quench your own thirst, to take care of yourself. You place your own mask on. And then can we forgive others? after you have gone through this trial and these steps that I've been sharing with you, you are absolutely going to be thirsty. You're absolutely going to need the courage, and what courage you may have found or gained or acquired in these steps here. You've got to use it to forgive yourself first. And then can we forgive others? Number 5, overcome. I'm just doing a recap here as we're closing up here. Number 5, I mentioned to overcome. To overcome is not just to say, oh, I made it through. No, you made it through with the scars. And the scars may not always be visible, but you made it through, and you've got a testimony. Your scars, the knowledge that you've acquired in this place, how we speak to people, how we now show up is our testimony. How we present ourselves is our testimony, because we in this space have been through all matters of pressure. Again, that purification process I mentioned earlier. So overcome. And lastly, number 6 is to reproduce. Now, you can reproduce. Now that you've gone through those first 5 steps, it doesn't mean that it's over with, guys. It means that you've gone through the pressure of all this stuff, and you can't forget this, because the enemy of our thoughts, if you will, the pressure that may come from other people, other men who are not quite there, the thoughts themselves that seem like they come from nowhere, they will absolutely try to bring forth contention or a restlessness sometimes that wants to try to settle on our spirit. And we've got to resist. We've got to resist that spirit or those conversations that would say otherwise. And so it absolutely becomes a place where we're always at work, always at work, always doing the Father's business, if you will. The doors to this business, they don't close, because even as it stands, sometimes our dreams are, again, as we are lying down from perhaps a long day, the thoughts will try to come in and show up at will and take up space in our minds, if you will. Take up a territory. And we have to resist this thing, those thoughts. And that's why I'm saying that as we are following these 5 steps here, finally, with number 6, we get to reproduce the very thing that we have gone through. And that means creating or helping other men to become leaders. But it does not mean that we're out of the woods. It means that even as we have gone through these processes, or these steps, if you will, we're still in it as well, because the enemy of our minds, the thoughts, again, the societal views that we still have to deal with, because we live here in this earthly space, the earthly realm here. We've got the views and societal ideas that we were once at a particular time part of. And they will absolutely at different times try to creep up on us and try to take up residence that it once occupied. And so that's what I'm seeing, or what I mean, that even once we have been fortified, if you will, by completing these first 5 steps, and now we're in a place of reproducing the very thing that we've gone through, helping other men become leaders, their best version of themselves. We're not out of the woods. And we as men, now fathers, we've got to make sure that we pass that information on. My mom would say to me when I was much younger, and I'm going to kind of wrap it up with this one here, and then I'll share a little bit of the conference again. My mom would say when I was younger, Curtis, you know, whenever you eat, Curtis, you always break your plate. She would say that to me. And my mom was just a wise woman. She was just a wise woman. And she would say that to me, you know, amongst many other things. But she was, Curtis, you always break your plate after you eat. And a lot of times she would not, and a lot of times, take a drink here, sorry. Excuse me. And a lot of times she would not explain those riddles to me. And, you know, I would call them riddles, but they were just pockets or just nuggets of wisdom. And oftentimes she wouldn't explain it to me. She would just say, oh, just keep living, you'll learn. That's what my mom would say to me. And it would be years later that I would learn. And I talked about this in a broadcast, earlier broadcast, is that when my mom said that, Curtis, you always break your plate after you eat. Sometimes we will look for a piece of information. I can find myself looking for, maybe have a question about something with digital marketing or video content creation or whatever. And I'm looking for this information. And I can find myself looking for just that information. And I might play the video and maybe scrub through the video and say to myself, no, that's not it. But as soon as I get that information, it suffices for what I need at that moment. And my mom would say to me, Curtis, you always break your plate. And what she would mean that, Curtis, stop breaking your plate. Know that you're going to need to use that same plate again. And I would find myself, when I was much younger, having to get the information or having had received the information, taking off and running with it, excited about it. Next thing you know, I'm coming back with yet an entirely, maybe different question. But nevertheless, if I would have stayed a little longer and allowed the information to resonate with me, and again, ascertaining that information for greater understanding, I could absolutely have found my plate valuable. The very thing that was presented in front of me or given to me to hold this knowledge that I was seeking, I found myself destroying it and skipping away, and I got what I needed, and next thing you know, kind of moping along, and so that's what my mom would mean by, Curtis, you always break your plate after you eat. So I'm saying to you, gentlemen, and those who will watch the replay, stop breaking your plate after you eat. Give itself, hey, what's going on, Ryan? How are you, man? How are you, brother? Appreciate you, man. Loving your videos, Ryan. Absolutely, man. Love your authenticity. Love your just being vulnerable, Ryan. I appreciate that, man. Absolutely. There's a lot to say about that, in which so many people are just trying to cover up a lot of different things. But yeah, I absolutely love your videos, man. And I've been checking you out. But yeah, so I'm kind of wrapping it up here, Ryan. And I've been talking about, just give you a quick recap. I've been talking about six things men must do to show up as leaders. The first one was model, finding the right model. The second was to study. The Bible speaks of to study to show thyself approved, that a workman rightly divide the word of truth. If you mean, yeah. study to show thyself approved, a workman rightly divide the word of truth. And then the third one was practice. And along with practice comes discipline. Discipline will come, but first practice and then discipline, and then back and forth, practice and discipline. So those two are kind of working together. And then number 4, forgiveness of yourself first, and then forgiveness of others. So these, again, those are 1 to 4 steps. The other 2 I'll mention in just a moment. But yeah, forgiveness was a huge piece because oftentimes as people, we will absolutely have it backwards, if you will. As the old saying is, putting the horse before the cart. So with forgiveness means that we are actually absolutely forgiving ourselves first. Once we have gone through these steps here, again, finding the right model. Who are we looking to model? Who are we looking to aspire after? We're studying, we're practicing, we're receiving the discipline that comes with it, and we're forgiving ourselves and knowing that life has happened to all of us. And with that life having happened to all of us, there comes a lot of pain, a lot of regret, a lot of broken or unmet expectations that we picked up along the way, man. And we've got to first, again, having gone through all these steps, we've got to muster that courage up. And that courage that we may muster up, that we will muster up in the midst of going through those first few steps, we have to receive it for ourselves. And that means forgiving ourselves first and then forgiving others. And then number 5, overcoming. I mentioned overcome. Overcoming was not just a not coming from a space of conquering something, but of overcoming in the fashion that I've acquired the knowledge, I've acquired the understanding, I've acquired the wisdom with going through these steps. And then finally, number 6, reproduce. Reproduce, meaning that we're going to create a duplicate or help other men to become leaders as well. Again, the best version of themselves. So that's what we've been talking about. And guys, 6 things men must do to show up as leaders, the best version of themselves. Once more, I mentioned the conference that is going to be taking place in the month of October. That is October 20th and the 21st of October. This is the 21st of this year, 2023. That is October the 20th and the 21st, 2023, Friday and Saturday. Doors open at 7 p.m. on Friday. It is going to be a hybrid conference. That means that you will have a virtual portion of the conference as well as a in-person. The virtual portion will, obviously, you can watch it from the confines of your home, your office, wherever you'd like to, with friends. And then there's the in-person portion of the broadcast or the conference as well. Would love to see you there. Follow the link there on the screen, bit.ly/the men's conference. Is going to take you directly to our website. Read the information that's there. Some great information. I share some personal stories that I absolutely have been very powerful in my growth as a man and walking into leadership. Again, this leadership meaning not as the world looks at it, but leadership as coming from a spiritual perspective. And these are things that, to me, where I have found they're absolutely less risky. Doesn't mean that they don't come with the challenges, but it's a lot less risky than someone, as men, as challenging as we all can be, where we will oftentimes at times move the line. Yeah, I'd rather deal with the one who is infallible. It's a lot more less riskier. So that being said, guys, again, this conference, follow the link there on the screen there, bit.ly, the men's conference, all one word, guys. Reserve your seat today. The tickets will go up at some point. And Guys, we will say ciao for now. Thank you for tuning in. All those who have been a part of this broadcast, watch the replay, share this replay out, guys. It's been some powerful nuggets I've been discussing with you. I've poured my heart into this here, so would love for you to share it out and encourage someone else as well. So we'll say bye-bye for now, guys. We'll talk to you later. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.